Vice Chair Furr.
Alternate, Senator Geller.
Senator Geller. Member Shuham. I think she's online. Yep. Okay, she's coming. Member Horland.
Here.
Member Mateo Bowen.
Here.
Member Dunn. I believe she's online. Member Rydell.
Online as well, I believe.
Okay. Member Mead. Here. Member Cagano. Member AJ Ryan.
Here.
Member Newton. Member Bright Cruz.
I think he's online as well.
He's online too.
And we have our school board representative here as well.
Here.
Board. Member Bowen.
Thank
Here.
you. All right, if you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of
the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, as indicated, we do not yet have a quorum. Once we have that, we'll go back to the voting items. For right now, public comment. Anyone who has signed up for public comment? Do we have anyone signed up? Let's see if there's anything back there.
Packed meeting today.
Okay.
All right, so why don't we go to the executive director's report again, acknowledging that we can't yet vote on the meeting minutes. Executive director.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending. And I realize it's a very busy day for everybody, especially with regards to some of the conversations the last few days. With regards to financial update, Angela, you want to just be able to give us a real quick overview?
Good morning, Angela Harms with ComResnick. The financial report for the end of March, the net cash position was $1,435,612, and the net assets $2,779,657. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. No, I think it's pretty straightforward. If anybody has any, get into any detail on the financials, please get a hold of me and we'll work that out with Angela and the ComResnick team. Thank you.
Okay, member annual assessment update. Go ahead, continue through your report.
Okay. As you know, we are still hoping to receive everybody's assessment. We will have an email out later today with regards to that reminder to the executive committee members and the governing board members. So please, if you have not if we have not received your payment, you will be getting an email here shortly, just as a helpful reminder. Next thing, regionalization update. And with that, hopefully we'll have more information by the next meeting, but we were able to meet recently with the South Florida Regional Planning Council. We did meet with Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, Broward, and I would really appreciate Kevin and Natasha being at that meeting, along with Mike Ruiz. It was a first meeting, and we agreed to be able to start a regular meeting going forward every 4 to 5 weeks. We really were trying to just develop a format, discussion items. We'll have more to report with regards to that regionalization. And I do believe we can have the South Florida Planning Council come and do a small presentation here in the short term. But that'll happen at one of the future meetings, but that is being worked out currently. And I think we have some talking points that we'll be able to communicate to this group on how that group would be able to assist us. Next thing on the thing possible. So let's talk about this. Next one is the possible cancellation of the May 16th executive committee meeting and combining it with the May 21st governing board / executive committee workshop. In May, we will have by May, I believe it's May 9th, the draft master plan will be completed. You'll have more of an update here from SCS and Arcadis here from Leah in just a few minutes. We will have that available. What we are planning for that the executive committee workshop is the review of the draft master plan. We are trying to reserve the entire 4-hour period of that workshop for that. We may have some additional small obviously administrative items, that part of the EC. And at that meeting, we also will be inviting the governing board because remember, we need to get the governing board in here to be able to provide a guidance and recommendation and approval for the extension of the ILA. So that'll be at the next meeting.
All right, so we would first need a motion if we're going to, let's see what the view of the executive committee is, to combine the 16th with the 21st and combine that business. Any views on that? Any motions?
Tell me,
Have a motion by the vice chair to cancel the 16th meeting, and let me restate it, to reschedule to the 21st.
and what would be the purpose of that, Mr. Chair?
To consolidate the timing. I won't be here on the 16th for sure, but to also consolidate the timing. We're going to have everybody together on the 21st anyway with the governing board. So, and we have a workshop scheduled that day as well.
Thank you.
Member Terrebonne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One, I want to let Clay know that Member Shuhan is trying to get in online. And second, how long do you think our meeting on the 21st is going to be, being that it's going to be 3 consolidated meetings?
Yeah,
It should be the 4 hours. We
4 hours.
anticipate at least an hour, hour and a half to 2 hours to review the draft master plan. We will have additional time depending on questions, obviously. The items for the executive committee, again, it'll be just administrative. We should be able to get those through those very, very quickly. And there's only the one item with the full governing board, which we'll start out with, which is the extension of 1 year. So we should be able to have all of that done completed in the 4-hour time frame.
Thank you, Executive Director Sorty. I do have a follow-up question in regards to our governing board members. A few individuals have reached out to me and said that they are not abreast on what is going on. Is there going to be an update or a recap for them before coming into the governing meeting so they are able to catch up and review any items we've discussed beforehand?
Each of the governing board members has received a draft of each of all the tasks and provided, and when they've provided comments. When we get the draft master plan available on May 9th, we will be distributing it to all of the governing board members along with the EC members for additional comments, feedback. If I can, as part of that distribution, and I've reached out to a number of them.
Yeah,
They
that I
put me in
called.
touch
Right.
to set up one-on-one meetings and answer any of their questions. I believe I have set up with City of Tamarack,
West Park.
West Park for next week.
So a follow up to that, the reason why I bring this up is because there has been a lot of shifts in a lot of local governments. A lot of people have left, all the things, and folks that may have been on the governing board prior are no longer on that commission. So I'm not sure if your team can look at where that shift has happened in certain cities to make sure that we're all in alignment.
No, yes, we can. And we've reached out to all of the new board members to
Okay.
have that one-on-one meeting so that I can review the documents with them.
Thank you for your due diligence.
all right, just for that, let's make sure 2 things happen. One, make sure that the city managers, I know they're included on these distributions of tasks, but to remind them to get with their designated members, they also have a responsibility to work on that. And then 2, I would strongly suggest, as Member Mateo Bones outlining and I think proposing, that you make personal contact, particularly with the new members, but offer to all governing board members that if they wish to have a conference or get up to speed, that you'll make yourself available for that. Okay, Member Horley.
Very briefly, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Executive Director, I think to Member Matera Bowen's point, and if when you send out that final master plan draft, if you could perhaps maybe do a brief cover letter with some bullet points so that, you know, some of these folks, especially the new folks, will know what they need to focus on. Obviously, they need to read the whole plan. The thing I'm most concerned about is the financial impact that a lot of people are not aware of where we're going with this.
Okay,
And I don't want anyone walking into that meeting surprised.
understood.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the motion and the second related to consolidating those meeting dates. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then we will go ahead and renotice that for the 16th. Member Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment, because we moved on to this quickly, on the outreach with the South Florida Regional Planning Council. There's a lot of people here that are familiar with that. I just stepped down as chair. I was chair for 3 years, stepped down in January. I know Greg Ross, who was the prior chair of this committee is also a former chair of the SFRPC, Commissioner Horland. Are you Commissioner or council member? Council member Horland is on the SFRPC. So we have a lot of people that have worked with both groups. And if you need any assistance, I still talk with the executive director there multiple times a week, Isabel Cosio Carballo. Happy to expedite anything, but you know, there's a lot of people that share membership on both groups.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. All right, let's go back. We do have now officially, council, a quorum for, yes, okay. Let's go back to meeting minutes. We have the meeting minutes from February 10th, 2025, Executive Committee Workshop, the February 21, 2025 Executive Committee meeting. I'm just going to read out the items. March 14th, 2025 Executive Committee Workshop, March 21st, 2025 Executive Committee meeting, March 21st, 2025 Audit Committee meeting, and March 23rd Earth Day panel. With respect to the meeting minutes, procedurally, any objection to consolidating a motion for the approval of those minutes subject to discussion and exceptions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Mateo Bowen, seconded by Vice Chair. Any discussion on those items? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously and votes for. Okay, Audit Selection Committee. I'll turn to, I guess, the Executive Committee or Council to outline where we are.
Lori, you might have to consolidate this, but we did meet at the last meeting. As everybody knows, the RFP for the audit selection companies went out. We had over 300 view the document. Number downloaded the document, but we only had one proposer. We reviewed that at the Audit Selection Committee, and it was decided that we should be able to move forward with the one proposer. They are reputable. They do a lot of work for a number of the other cities already. And the recommendation was to just be able to move forward with the Audit Selection Committee without an interview process here. Lori, what did I miss there?
No, that's correct. So we have on here that you can decide to interview. This is up to the executive committee, or you can just go with the recommendation of the audit committee.
All right, I'll open up for discussion. Vice Chair.
Who is the one proposer?
Citron Cooperman.
Citron Cooperman. Council, can you have the information there? And let's just go back so that the executive committee understands what effort was made to, first of all, push out the information of this potential selection, and how far and wide was that? I know the county was very helpful in assisting in that process. If you can, Council.
Yes, we advertised on Demand Star, and they pushed that out not only to anybody on their vendors list that would qualify for this type of proposal. I believe the executive director also sent out to any of the parties that he had gotten from any of the members here that may have been auditors for their cities. So it did go out to a wide number of vendors. We did get some questions, and we answered those questions through an addenda to the RFP. But we, like Todd said, we only received one actual proposal. The audit committee found them to be both responsible and I guess responsive. That's it.
All right. With respect to what the audit committee found in terms of the efforts to announce this, did the audit committee make any findings in that regard?
Yeah, they found that it went out to the number of acceptable number of vendors, and we did not extend the time to increase other people actually proposing. So they felt that this is a very good proposer, and a number of cities have used them in the past, and it would be more than sufficient to actually engage this.
Was there any discussion as to why, or any supposition as to why there was only one responsive? I understand this is a relatively small contract.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They seem to feel that because it's a new entity and that it is a very small engagement, a lot of the vendors did not make the effort to put in.
Member Harlan, I'll open it up anyway.
You were reading my mind, Mr. Chair. As Vice Chair of the Audit Committee, that was our supposition, was that it was a very small account. We would have liked to have seen more applicants, but again, there were 300 firms that looked at it. City of Plantation does use Citron Cooperman, and we were all comfortable with it going forward.
All right, fair enough. All right, to the members, the first question would be whether or not you wish to interview the firm. That would be the first question. Vice Chair, I know you wanted.
After Commissioner, I want to say Bowen, but I guess it's Mayor Bowen, I'm sorry, has asked her question. Everyone else, I would move that we hire without any additional interviews, the one responsible vendor, but I will make that motion only upon the completion of the public comment period.
Okay.
Not member.
Yes. Member Mateo Bowen.
And I also want to amplify that we put this audit committee in place, and I want to trust their due diligence because that's why we put them in place. So I will go with whatever recommendations they suggest. Thank you,
All right,
Mr.
thank you,
Chair.
Member Mateo Bowen. Back to the motion of the Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on that motion? Go ahead and call the roll on that.
Chair Ryan,
Yes.
Senator Geller,
Yes.
Member Shuhan,
Yes.
Member Orland.
Yes.
Member Mateo Bowen.
Yes.
Member Dunn. Member Rydell. Member Mead.
Yes.
Member Kajiano.
Yes.
Member AJ Ryan.
Yes.
Member Newton. Member Bright Cruz.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That passes. Thank you to the work of the Audit Committee, Council, and the Executive Director in this process. And thank you for the motion. All right, ongoing outreach and education plan, conceptual update. Conceptual's here for us. Thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Chair Ryan. Good morning. Okay, the fun stuff. Can I control this from here, Clay? Just click. You're controlling it. Okay. Yep. Terrific. Next slide. Good morning, Lori, Conceptual Communications. I'm just going to provide a brief update of where we are with public outreach, what we have going on. So we're in 4 phases here with branding and awareness, which is sort of outgoing. This is for this year we're talking about. Right now, we're kind of in 2 and 3 at the same time. We're obtaining feedback, right? We're doing our surveys. We did resident survey 1. Now we're doing the business survey. To be determined if we're going to do another resident survey. And then phase 3, we're going to start talking about, right, waste reduction, better recycling practices and all of that. And then we move into phase 4, we're really looking at the draft master plan. We have some outreach meetings happening in June. So then we're shifting more into phase 4. So at some point, we'll probably be straddling 2, 3, and 4. Next slide, please. Okay, so I just want to touch base on what we are doing right now. Hopefully you all received the digital newsletter for April. Yes, if you didn't, please allow Todd Story's email from Constant Contact. Some cities put up a firewall, but as long as you allow it once, it will go into your inbox. So we're sending out a digital newsletter. It has over a 50% open rate, which is nice. So, you know, most public agencies have about 12 to 18%. So very good.
So let's just pause you there.
Yep.
To the Executive Director, let's make sure we reach out to each of the cities on this firewall issue and try to make sure.
I can put something together, language for that,
Okay.
a note of how to do that. We're continuously updating the website. This isn't a set it and forget it tool. The white papers, as they become available, being added. All the public meeting notices live in 2 places there with all the backup materials. We have our FAQs. Through the website, people can submit comments. They do. A lot are on collection. So we're working through those, you know, connecting them with their city representative if they come through. And then if there's a bigger issue we want to develop, we're going to be adding to our FAQs on our own website. Next slide, please. Okay, the surveys are obviously a huge outreach tool right now because what we're doing is we're communicating with so many different organizations and already starting to socialize the work of the authority through those surveys, even though we're sourcing feedback. So those toolkits have been great. We're talking with local media. We've had a few articles pop up already on it. And then we're doing social media, right? You guys are already on X, Facebook, and Instagram. So we did a whole holiday recycling campaign back in December. We just did Food Waste Prevention Week. The white papers are being shared individually with links. Obviously, all the meeting reminders are going out. So we're using those platforms very regularly. Next slide. Okay, this I'm so excited to share with you today. Not yet, Clay. So obviously working with the schools is such a big, piece of the work we're going to continue to do together. So for Earth Day, we're going to launch a very special video campaign series that we shot with a group of high school interns that work through mods. And we spent the day with the students filming them. They're so eager. They are going to be your best ambassadors. They have so much passion for this. So I'm going to share one with you because we're going to launch it next week. But go ahead, Clay, play the video. Okay, so we filmed like probably 15 of these because I think the biggest mistake outreach can make is you start something, but then you don't carry it. So having that content banked, ready to go, we're going to pop them out, once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that.
All right,
So,
before you move on,
yeah.
Member Materbo.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say this is super cute. I'm super excited to see all the other videos with our young people. And that is just a way for us to encourage other young people to get involved. And I love that you included the Discovery Museum. We just heard them do a presentation our last meeting and all the work that they're doing there. So thank you for amplifying the partners that we've already built relations with. So thank you thus far.
Yes, thank you.
I think the other thing that comes from this, right, is, and I'll come to you, sorry about that, Anthony, is that this is a format that individual cities can then do and have a very local flavor, right?
Yep.
And it extends to even into senior communities. You could shoot some with, in some of your retirement communities. So this is, as was said by Member Terrebonne, incredibly compelling, right, from the youth perspective, but it's a format that can be duplicated by individual cities that wish to also with their staff to do that. So I appreciate that.
Yep.
The other component, as you point out, is short.
Yeah.
And lots of content that
You're right.
you can roll out so that otherwise you don't get.
Yep. It's an 8-second attention span for people with these things. This was a 30, close to 30 seconds. The other ones are shorter because it's one student. They're quick. They're little tips. But that's, we will, I think, you just gave me a good idea. Maybe my staff has thought of it. Hopefully they have. But I think as we roll it out, we can just send a note to the PIO city manager, like, hey, your student video is up, just like to share it with your community on your own platforms and things, just to like broaden the reach a little bit.
Perfect.
We can definitely do that.
Into the mic, yep.
I just want to comment that it's visually appealing.
Yes.
The colors, the fonts, yes, clean was the first word that came to my mind when I saw it. So yeah, very nice.
Thank you. Yeah, we created your brand. We started together with the logo, but I always say this, it's so much more than that. The way you activate a brand is so much more important than, just a logo on a page. And then I just wanted to remind you, we do have software in place. So your surveys, it was very important to me specifically that you are the holders of all of your raw data. So we have this software tool called Engagement HQ that we're using. That's where all your surveys live now. But as we move into June with, the public outreach meetings, they have a lot of capability. There's listening tools on there. There's mapping features on there. There's idea boards we could launch. So we're going to be looking at all those tools that we have available to us. They're sitting there. They're ready to be activated just as we need them. So we have a lot, that's why we went with that tool. It's not just a survey tool. There's other other things in there. It's part of Granicus, right? Cities use Civic Plus or Granicus. It's part of the Granicus suite. Okay, the public outreach meetings, we're gearing up for that as soon as we get our dates, our times. We're going to be creating toolkits, getting those out to all of the cities, 28, all the organizations to spread the word, the media. And then we're just starting to plan for next year. Member Dunn, I know she was going to join virtually, but we're looking to have a meeting with her next week so we can just like start seeing where we want to go.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
That's great. We'll work with, we have an item on here with SES to talk about the
Oh.
upcoming June dates as well. Member Matera Bone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to follow up on the Education Committee. Does that have to be sunshine? Because I know a few folks wanted to participate in that conversation.
Yeah, everything has to be sunshined on these. Absolutely.
We're developing the format and a draft agenda right now. We are going to be reviewing that next week with Member Dunn. Once we finish that review with Member Dunn and have her feedback, then we will begin this next phase where we would hopefully have participation from other members here
Yep.
of the committee. And yes, those meetings, if we meet, would have to be sunshine.
Perfect. And I just want to, for the record, state that I would like to participate. So thank you very much. Follow-up question in regards to the surveys. Thank you for allowing me to participate in the business survey. I filmed with them. Is there any feedback? Have we gotten any feedback from the businesses? Have they been positive? How is that going?
It's going great. So we've learned, it takes cities, especially at least a 2-week lead time to even publish the information. The business organizations even slower because most of them have monthly meetings or quarterly sometimes. But we're upwards of 90 results so far. RRS didn't have a target number they wanted for a sample. They just wanted a solid sample size. They required every question in the survey to be completed. So, we've lost a few because they exit out. If it's not 5 questions, it's like, oh, this is going to take too long, even though it shows a progress bar. But we're almost at 90. So I think, if we can get to that 100, 125, I think, we extended the deadline to the end of this month. So I think we'll get there. We're doing really well. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
How did you distribute these surveys? Did
Oh.
you share it with the chambers? Yes. Okay.
A huge list that I'd be happy to share with you, but every business organization is on there.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Matera Bone. Okay, next.
I did have, just in case you wanted it, because this was the budget I had presented last time that we're working against this year, but just like what's been done and where we are. I don't know what of the 225 is left, but I know we're not over budget.
Okay. Okay.
So,
All right. All right,
Clay,
I
think that's it.
expect that'll be part of the analysis of the Education Committee as well.
Yes.
And oversight, so I
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Give her a
Have
round of applause.
wonderful
Thank you.
holiday. Thank you.
Let me just ask one question before you walk away. If individual cities wish to develop these type of videos that are very parochial to their cities, can they reach out to you?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a format and we'll make it easy for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you so much. All right, C&D white paper review. We got remote right,
Yep.
on this one.
This is remote. RRS is actually online, Travis, with RRS. Leah, he works with Leah as part of the SCS team. And this was with response to the additional tasks that you required or requested for the C&D review. Leah can do a quick introduction.
Thank you, Todd. Good morning, Executive Committee members, Chair, Vice Chair, Senator. Leah Richter, as Todd said, with Arcadis. I'm part of the SCS team, and Travis Barnes here with the RRS portion of our team is going to be delivering an overview of the construction and demolition debris white paper that we delivered. It was one of the additional tasks that the committee had requested, really to just get a more deep dive into best practices around the state and country, what others are doing. So Travis is going to share that, and Todd introduced it well. So thank you so much. Looks like the presentation is sharing well, and technical difficulties are 0. So excellent.
Okay.
All right, Travis, take it away. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. My name is Travis Barnes, as Leah said there. I'm a senior consultant with RRS. We're part of the overall consultant team under SES. Excuse me. I'm with RRS, part of the SES team. So we've been assisting on the development of the master plan. So we're here today to talk a little bit about construction demolition debris, why it's important to target that waste stream to really reach your recycling goals. And we're going to talk about some of the policy tools that local governments utilize to really increase recycling rates for C&D. See if we can advance here. There we go. All right, so first let's point out that figure at the bottom of the screen here to really talk about, what materials comprise the construction demolition material stream. So this is EPA national data. You can see from construction and also demolition and then combined what materials comprise that. What's important to note here is that overwhelmingly concrete and asphalt make up the largest portion of this material stream, and they're often the easiest to target for recycling, along with metals because of the value that metals have. And so just as we're going through the discussion today, kind of keep that in your back of your mind. There are other traditional recyclables that end up in this stream. Cardboard in particular is often targeted, but from a weight-based perspective and moving the needle on that overall recovery for your recycling rates, the heavier stuff is really what's targeted by most of these facilities. So in the US and in Canada, few governments actually own and operate C&D facilities. There are some that are out there. Western Placer, California comes to mind. There's also Dane County, Wisconsin. So they're out there, but not as many as one might think. It's often the private sector that handles this. However, there is very strong interest from municipalities to start looking at the C&D waste stream more aggressively to help achieve their zero waste goals or to meet the high recycling targets that they have. Also important to note, although not necessarily a policy tool that we'll get into, but tip fees heavily influence the flow of C&D materials in any given market. What's really a motivation for these companies that are doing the construction demolition is the haul cost and the disposal cost of that. So that's just something else to keep in mind. It's a component of the overall system that you'll have in any given market. So why focus on C&D materials right here in Broward County? Our composition studies have shown that it's a significant percentage of your overall waste stream, 44% here. And so it really makes sense for you all to reach your 75% recycling goal and to align with the state of Florida's 75% recycling goal to target that waste stream. Additionally, our recent analysis as part of the Task 4 white paper for the master plan development shows that the volume of C&D has dramatically increased over the past couple of years. With the population growth that's expected to be coming to Broward County, we expect this trend to continue. Again, just shows you graphically that it's a big part of your waste stream and definitely worth targeting. So within Florida, the state does have the 75% recycling goal that you all are familiar with. And with the most recent data from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, 36% of the state's waste stream is comprised of this type of C&D material. As a reminder, all of the counties in Florida have to do an annual report that they submit to the state that captures their waste within the county and the recycling rates of that, and that's how they're arriving at these numbers. In 2010, the legislature did recognize the importance of C&D recycling. They adopted Section 403.7062B, and that directed counties to implement a program for recycling of C&D debris. They also adopted the Section 403.7079G, and that's stated by January 1st of 2012, to the extent economically feasible, all C&D debris must be processed prior to disposal. And so I bolded that to the extent economically feasible and point out that at the state level, there is very little enforcement of the state on counties that to make sure that they're adhering to the statute. And many counties that don't have robust programs kind of point to, well, it's not economically feasible for us. Important to keep in mind when we talk about the Sarasota County example coming up in a future slide as well. So just wanted to point that out. So why focus on policy options for C&D? Roughly 80% of the C&D can be beneficially used and recovered, as we pointed to in that first graphic on the first slide, if you recall. And within Broward County, only 39% of that material was recycled in 2023 per the most recently published state report. So that shows there's a significant opportunity to really address this waste stream to improve your recycling rates, and along with that comes the environmental benefits, but also helps preserve your limited disposal capacity, which is very important as well, particularly given the growth that we are projecting to happen within the county. There are lots of C&D recycling facilities already within the county. The Task 2 white paper that was completed as part of the master plan process identified the private sector C&D facilities that are there, and that there is ample capacity currently to receive more volume within that. And so in order to make kind of the biggest impact, pursuing ordinances and policy tools can help increase recycling without having to invest in a authority-owned C&D facility right off the bat in the short term. We do anticipate, given the volume of waste that will be generated, and in order for the county to meet the 75% recycling goal that you've put forth, that might be needed at a future date. But in the short term, pursuing the ordinances is probably most efficient option for you to make quick progress. So some of the common policy options that are available are deposit programs, deconstruction mandates, disposal bans. They typically target the common items that we talked about: concrete, asphalt, clean wood, and scrap metal. And then there's some green building incentives, which is kind of a different market-based approach with that. And we'll give some examples of these on the next couple slides. So deposit programs, they typically incentivize the waste diversion by requiring an upfront deposit. Typically that is a refundable to the contractor or the developer that's doing the work if they meet those diversion targets. And it's often, you know, the cost of the deposit varies by community, but it's typically based on a project type or the size of the project or a waste generation estimate that is associated with the project. And those deposits are then refunded if it's demonstrated through robust reporting that their recycling or diversion goals are met. Typically, if a developer chooses not to do that in these situations, the forfeited deposits are used by the community to fund other sustainability initiatives. San Jose is a good example of this in California. They have a deposit-based system based on the building square footage size, and once you meet the 50% diversion, that money is refunded back. And just as a reminder, in the Task 17 C&D white paper, there's a lot more detail on all of these policies, as well as some examples. For deconstruction mandates, this is one where the communities actually require the disassembly of buildings. So not just going in and demolishing it, but you have to have a systematic deconstruction process in place. Typically, they require a plan of action to be submitted to the community before work is allowed to begin. And they apply to different types of building sizes. They often target older buildings because of the salvage potential and the value of some of the salvageable items from older buildings. And they require certified contractors to perform the deconstruction to make sure it's done appropriately. Boulder is a good example of this. They kind of have a hybrid model in that there's a refundable deconstruction deposit, but there's also a mandate requiring that certain demolition and remodeling projects have a deconstruction plan and that they meet the recycling requirements. Palo Alto, California is another example. They have bans on demolition, and they require deconstruction for all projects involving the complete structure removal. Disposal bans are another tool in your policy toolkit. These target those readily recyclable items typically and ban them from going into landfills within the community. So as we talked about, concrete, asphalt, wood, metals are typically the ones that are targeted. And they typically require recycling facilities to be certified. And communities either do that certification themselves or they rely on some of the third-party options that are out there to confirm that the facilities are doing what they say they're doing. So there's inspections, there's penalties that are associated with that. Something to keep in mind as we move forward with thinking about, you know, what options the authority might want to pursue is, you know, what type of administrative costs are needed to implement these programs and make sure they run smoothly. Austin, Texas is a good example of this. They require recycling of at least 50% of debris for projects over 5,000 square feet. And they also limit the disposal to 2.5 pounds of debris per square foot on those projects. Seattle, Washington is another example. They ban specific materials from going into dumpsters or their transfer stations. They target concrete, asphalt, brick. They even target cardboard and gypsum scrap, as well as clean wood from that. So it's a little more of an aggressive policy there. Green building incentives is another tool that we see quite often, and there's some examples of that within the state of Florida here as well that we'll cover. They basically encourage sustainable construction practices. So for those that might not know about the LEED certification program, that stands for Leaders in Energy and Environmental Design. It's a third-party rating system and certification system that was founded by the U.S. Green Building Council. And so developments that pursue this certification, there's a point system associated with different aspects of their project and the environmental outcomes associated with that. And they do have some points for minimizing construction waste and the waste that's generated from construction projects and the reporting that goes with that. Typically, communities will sometimes offer incentives for developers to pursue a LEED certification, and common ones are density bonuses, also expedited permitting. So if you're pursuing a development and you're going to confirm that you're going to pursue a LEED certification, you could potentially get additional square footage, which is a great financial incentive, or you can jump to the front of the line with permitting, and we all know time is money on a development. So those kind of help incentivize the development community to pursue these types of rating systems. Coral Gables is a good example in Florida. They require LEED certification for all buildings over 20,000 square feet. City of Miami also requires LEED Silver for new private construction over 50,000 square feet, and they've got some density bonuses for higher certifications. New York City chooses to kind of lead by example with their municipal funded buildings. So within any city funded project, they require LEED certification to be adhered to. So what are some of the counties doing that are leading the state here in Florida? Lee County had the top C&D recycling rate in 2023, which is the most recently published data by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Sarasota County and Palm Beach are also routinely at the top for C&D recycling and recovery rates. And all three of those have ordinances related to C&D that I'll cover in the next couple of slides. Noticeably, Miami-Dade to your south and Broward County are considerably lower in their recycling rates. And again, it just shows that these policies do work to help incentivize increased recycling. So Lee County is one of the ones that's often thought of as a leader in the state. They adopted an ordinance back in 2007. It requires contractors and homeowners to divert at least 50% of the waste generated during construction and demolition projects. And they have different fees imposed based on the type of the project and the size of the project. And there's some examples there provided to you to show kind of a sliding scale, not overly burdensome, but still provides some incentive for people to participate. And the fees are refunded upon meeting those diversion requirements, meeting that 50% recycling goal. They also encourage the deconstruction over demolition, but they do not require that. Sarasota County is notable. They have an ordinance in place. And one thing to point out with that is they had a contractor at their Central County landfill that was required to recover at least 50% by weight of the C&D coming into their facility. However, in 2022, they amended their ordinance, and noticeably they took the word recycling out of their definition of construction and demolition debris recycling facility and changed it just to construction and demolition debris facility. They also deleted language in the ordinance that said it had to provide evidence that it recycles at least 50% by weight. And they added language to the extent economically feasible to remove recycled material prior to disposal. So in a little bit of a kind of a backtracking there and mirroring the state statutory language because of the difficulty they had in meeting that 50% target. However, they're still doing a great job with C&D, and they promote it actively within the community. The Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County, in the county of Palm Beach, C&D is voluntary to be recycled. However, they require the facilities that are processing it to achieve a 50% recycling rate. So in order to have their operating permit, they've got to achieve that goal, and that's verified by the authority. And they encourage typically for contractors and residents to utilize the private C&D facilities. They do offer C&D recycling at their landfill as well, where they require people to source separate stuff out into the different components, scrap metal, concrete, as we discussed. And they estimate that they recycle about 35 to 40% of the C&D material that's brought to their landfill facility. So that's another approach that can be taken. Miami-Dade County doesn't have a formal ordinance in place. They do allow C&D to be brought to their neighborhood trash and recycling centers. They limit that to 3 cubic yards per customer per day, and they do some source separation and recovery of that. They do have a climate action strategy that was adopted in 2021, and within that, there was a recommendation to implement best practices to reduce and recycle C&D, including requiring pre-construction waste management plans. However, it's not led to any ordinances right now. It's just something that was a recommendation in 2021. So it's on the books, but nothing has happened with it thus far. City of Miami, as we mentioned earlier, they do have the LEED requirements. So in 2009, They changed their code to require new private construction over 50,000 square feet to meet the LEED Silver requirements. And then they offer some density bonuses for achieving higher levels of the LEED certification, with LEED Gold and LEED Platinum ultimately being the highest level that you can achieve under that rating system. So for the next steps recommended for the authority, we recommend that staff and leadership really reach out and engage with Lee, Palm Beach, and Sarasota counties. Talk with their solid waste directors and leadership to determine what's working well, how did they implement their programs, maybe what are some of the lessons learned, any of the challenges that they faced, and if they had a chance to do anything differently, what would they do. That would be very helpful and get the Florida specific information. Also, continue to reach out to other municipalities within the country that have some of the better C&D recycling programs. And there's a few examples that we can provide to kind of dig in on that a little bit more. And so ultimately, we're recommending that there is a process started to develop a C&D ordinance within Broward County. That would require a lot of robust collaboration, though, with the respective development services departments, permitting departments, as well as the different municipal leaderships and the C&D private operators that are existing, to really determine what's the best approach, what's the best fit, how aggressive does the county want to be? Is it something where you phase in things over time? And so all of that needs to be considered, but require a lot more stakeholder engagement to ultimately get to an ordinance that could be put forth before a vote. And with that, really appreciate your time. I know I went fairly quickly. I was told to keep it to 15 minutes, so hopefully I didn't feel rushed with that, but happy to answer any questions you've got. And there's my contact info if you have any questions that don't come up today.
All right, thank you. Let's give him a round of applause for that. Travis, thank you for the presentation. Task 17 report, as the members know, has a lot more information and the specifics in these different programs. It was almost literally a year ago that I published an opinion piece noting that C&D is that low-hanging fruit. We need to move on that. And the data that you provided here today not only provides in terms of the waste generation validation, but that there are policies, there are things that can be done that will directly influence. And while we work together as an executive committee and a governing board, and we consider such things as facilities and siting and locations, this is an incredibly important presentation to remind us that there are policies that can be implemented in the short term and need to move much quicker. There's policy work that needs to be done, and we ultimately will need to probably figure out how to get to those recommendations for our master plan, because any master plan that, frankly, I don't think we should be waiting for the master plan. I said that a year ago, but we are at this stage. We need to start that. How we get to those recommendations is necessarily a collaboration of the members of the executive committee. It may require, maybe an important idea that we prevent analysis paralysis and delay by maybe setting up, I hate to have an additional subcommittee, but like we've done for education, that we focus on this low-hanging fruit of C&D, bulk, and veg for that matter, to start making recommendations as rapidly as possible to work with the county staff, and the private providers. We can have a broader discussion. One of the important points on this is trying to obtain validated data. At the past workshop, we discussed the fact that the Broward landfill, the BIC, is accepting C&D. And I don't think we yet have validated data on what that volume is, but we also have been told that it is not being necessarily recycled to the highest level it should be or could be. That's been part of the analysis by the county over the past year, but it's resulted in an effort to perhaps build 2 additional cells, whether that's because of volume or we haven't done as a whole, we haven't done what we needed to in recycling. What we know is that efforts that can be and should be implemented will conserve space, precious space, and so we need to accelerate that. The policy work that you point out, Travis, is the hard work of what the members need to do here. This is it obviously has financial implications, but we need to expedite that evaluation because we can see programs deliver tangible results in areas that we know, particularly as we expand in Broward County, in areas that we know will have an immediate impact. So I thank you for that. Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have a series of questions both for Travis, and I will ask county if they have any comments on my questions. Travis, my first question to you is on a lot of the programs that you mentioned, what is the cost of those? When you go to, and by the way, Mr. Chair, I agree with you completely that C&D is, as you said, the low-hanging fruit. It is something, although there is dispute, I believe that it's impossible to ever reach 100%. But, you know, a lot of people are defining 100% as 75 or 80%. And I do think we can hopefully get up to a 75, 80% recycling, again, depending on whether you consider waste to energy as part of that number. But so I agree with you, almost the intent of everything that you said. But in terms of cost, what is the cost on this as compared to landfilling? And I know there's a lot of benefits, but once I know the cost, that will lead to a series of other questions, follow-up questions. I know there was a whole panoply of alternatives that you offered, but in general, what is the cost of recycling compared to landfilling?
Travis.
Right. So, yes, sir. So, great question and perfectly logical. We want to get to that, right? I'd say that it's not to dodge the question. It's extremely local. All garbage is local, and so the devil's in the details with the policies in each community. The level of construction and demolition activity happening drives the number of permits that would be issued and the level of oversight needed, the number of facilities that would need to be permitted and inspected. All of that is dependent on your local community. So I don't have a number that we can throw out there that would be accurate. I can say that it's worth pursuing, and particularly when you look at preserving your landfill capacity as well. So when you start to factor in the cost of developing a new landfill, which the master plan has demonstrated most likely will have to be provided at some point over the planning horizon, those costs get extremely high, not to mention the land and everything else associated with it. So we can do some more research and get you some ballpark numbers on that. That was part of the recommendation, is to reach out to, Lee, Sarasota, Palm Beach, see what the costs are for their program, really talk to their directors to figure out, how much do they think they're spending to implement their programs. That would be the next level that would be needed to really get you the type of information that you're looking for. I think if you started to look at some of the facilities out in California and other places, it wouldn't necessarily be comparable to what you've got right here versus, the local county examples that we've got. So again, not to dodge the question, but it really is dependent on the type of policy you would enact and the level of construction activity happening within your community.
Okay. Well, the reason that I'm asking that, and I'm going to ask Kevin Kelleher if he can comment on this. Do you know to what extent we can control or enforce where local governments, we, the county, can send their waste? One of the problems, for example, and Mayor Ryan, the chair, accurately pointed out the problems we have at the BIC in Southwest Broward. One of the problems is they have not state-of-the-art recycling, and building a state-of-the-art recycling facility is very expensive. The county can do that if we could determine in advance that we're going to get 8 gazillion tons. I intentionally used the word gazillion because I have no idea what the real number is. So I invented a fictitious number. But if we knew that we have 8 gazillion tons of garbage, then of C&D, then we could build a facility that would deal with that. We can't build a facility that will cost, $800 billion trillion. Again, clearly fictitious because I don't know the numbers, without knowing that there will be the aforementioned amount of waste going there. Now we have companies like Waste, or I believe it's Waste, it could be one of their subsidiaries, that are currently doing private C&D recycling. I don't believe we can prevent the private C&D recycling. at companies. So that makes it very difficult if the county can't mandate how or know in advance how much we can guarantee will come to our facility for us to spend the money to build the large facility. So my question to both you, Travis, and to you, Kevin, is to what extent can Broward County control what comes into our facilities from the cities? Because in all of the other areas, there's typically direct control. Broward, there's roughly 16, 17, 18,000 people out of over 2 million in the unincorporated areas. We are less than 1%. And, a concern that we've always had is if either private sector comes along and offers recycling at 25 cents a ton less than the county, or landfill is $1 a pound less than what the county does, that the cities will simply send to them, making it impossible for us to invest. Travis, can you, and Kevin, can you answer to what extent we could control that?
So before the answer is done, the whole purpose of the Solid Waste Authority and the ILA is to manage flow control.
Mhm.
That is going to be, assuming Solid Waste Authority stays in place, the flow control is a key component. How you get to that, whether it's regulatory or financial or whatever, that is a crucial component, number one. Number two, the issue of whether it becomes, and I think it's a great point that Vice Chair raised, is whether it becomes a private or a public facility is relying on identifying, which has already been done to some extent, where those private facilities exist, what gaps may exist there, how to build those partnerships, and determine whether or not a public facility is required. It doesn't answer what happens at BIC right now, right? There's a county decision that can be made whether it gets all diverted from BIC and they use the private, and there might be costs. And then third, the issue, and I think it has historically been the biggest single problem once the RRB failed and collapsed after 2012, which was that for a few dollars, cities would abandon a priority or paramount social and political policy. The purpose of the ILA is to avert that, is to make sure that we're working together to do this. So I would put that as kind of an overview, and obviously you have Kevin can comment on other issues, but ultimately I think from a legal perspective, the ILA is that vehicle by which flow control can be mandated. Travis, do you want to weigh in?
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you for framing it that way. I think you're correct. So I think it's important to think some of these policies would push C&D material to the existing privately ran C&D facilities without the authority having to invest in their own facility, particularly in the short term. So that would be the advantage to pursue policies like this. So for example, a disposal ban saying this material is no longer permitted to be at the county landfill, that would require it to then go somewhere else, which naturally would flow to those existing facilities that have capacity and that were identified in task 2. So that would be something that could be done to require it without having to have that capital investment out at your facility, as an example. The other things like the green building incentives, although they don't move the needle quite as much on diversion, can also be something that's not as costly to implement, doesn't require any infrastructure capital investment, and still helps to move in that direction. So I think that's the point of this to show that you have tools in the toolbox. You need to use a combination of approaches that get more aggressive over time, with ultimately maybe leading to some type of formal investment in a facility to capture more volume. But I think that you could pursue some of these other ordinances right off the bat and go ahead and start taking a bite out of that tonnage apple.
Now, Travis, this goes back to my initial cost question. If the county mandates 80% has to be recycled, let's say 50, but of C&D, and county doesn't have a facility, and you have 2 or 3 private companies doing it, and there's a mandate, they can substantially increase their price. And not saying that they would, because of course the private sector would never increase the price when they have an opportunity, but assuming in the unlikely event that they would, they're laughing, that goes back to the price, because we also have the conflicting. I think that probably the single issue I hear about most as a county commissioner is affordable housing. If we end up substantially increasing cost of construction, then that we may be helping in one goal while hurting in another goal, which is also critical to the county, which is why the single first question that I had to you was cost. So I will ask you to try and get back to us on that, because again, and this, I had 4 questions, but they're all subsumed in the 2, which was flow control and cost. I personally don't care whether it goes public facility or private facility, as long as we know what the cost is. I mean, county's not going to make money on it. Question is, how much can we charge to avoid losing a lot of money? We can lose a little, we can't lose a lot. Private sector, God bless them, let them go through the cost and make a reasonable return on it. But if it's going to be something that would cost 50% more than landfill, I strongly predict that a lot of the cities, I know we're hoping to say, oh, we're all going to be one great big happy family. But at the end of the day, when cities, I think, start to face how much of an increase it's going to be, I suspect there'll be pushback if that is a large increase. And that's why cost is so critical. And secondly, not only the cities, but what effect will it have on the cost of new housing? So those are my questions, Mr. Chair. And
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Insightful. Obviously, Lee County, Palm Beach County have been through this and have endured it. So fortunately, we're not in a novel environment. I would say, to the Vice Chair's point, a lot of the genesis as to why we are back seated together was because of the vagaries of the private market and an effort to try to see if we could, if not eliminate, certainly modulate that, to your point, when there's a paramount social policy and we have a public facility, like, it's like, right. And we don't necessarily are not focused on, in the circular economy, of making a profit. We can incubate, we can do things about it. I mean, we don't, all of us in the cities who have, youth athletic programs don't look to make money off them, right? We lose money on youth athletics because it is a paramount policy that we achieve. Education is a great example. We don't look to make money on education, right? So these are important questions that have to be presented as part of that analysis, and we need to move forward. And I know Member Shuham has a question. While we move to Member Shuham's question, I would also invite the members to think, how do we facilitate an expeditious movement towards these recommendations? That's the crucial issue. This is not a workshop. We need to be moving forward, and I'm very, very grateful for the models that have been provided to us that are more localized, as was pointed out by Travis. There are some that are out there in other states that may not be, we can't replicate for the various reasons. But we do have very close and local models that we need to be moving forward on.
Mr. Chair, if I could say 10 seconds only. Again, as you review these models, remember that under the Broward County Charter and Florida statutes, we, the county, may have different powers than other counties have, because we are a charter county, and the cities may have additional powers in Broward that they may not have in other counties. So that's, all models are not created equal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, and I know all cities have always been trying to tell the county we have more power than the county thinks. All right, Member Shuham.
What I was thinking. Not that you've ever done that, Mr. Chair.
No, that's of course correct. All right, Member Shuham.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair. A lot of my comments were covered in that back and forth. But first and foremost, I want to thank Travis. I thought that was really an excellent presentation. We had talked about this a few weeks ago when we had various industry representatives come in, and it was very clear at that meeting, I think it was Fetcher, a few of the other companies, that these materials are very valuable, and at least at this moment in history, the idea of recycling construction debris is an easy one. And as the chair said, it's low hanging fruit because the material has a lot of value. And the question at that meeting that I posed to, I think, Vice Chair Furr was, where is the county in passing this type of ordinance? And I thought the answer was they're close. And so my question is either for Travis or the county staff that's there, where is Broward County in drafting this type of ordinance? I thought that it was underway.
I think we're waiting to see what comes out of this committee, but let me ask Mr. Kelleher.
Yeah, this is a good point. This is the taffy poll. We can't wait for this. This is, it's why I wrote a year ago that this is low hanging fruit. We need to move forward. There's policies. We're there. What we need to do is partner with the county to think through all these different issues, but we can't be waiting till the end of this when there's a sign off on.
And there's no reason to wait because the demand in the recycling market exists. So there's no benefit to wait. I mean, in the future, we may have to go to the county and ask them to tweak to address some of the concerns that Senator Geller just raised. But certainly, Broward, just like seawalls, Broward can impose a requirement on the municipalities. So that was the discussion that we had a few weeks ago. And so I'm curious to know where in the process of passing a county ordinance are we?
Mr. Kelleher.
So to give a quick update, the county has done an analysis of what it can do at its landfill. We are not currently doing any policy issue on mandating C&D recycling. I'll defer to the legal minds here, but I don't believe that the county has the ability to mandate recycling on the cities. So that's one of those responsibility and provinces that's kept with the cities, back to Mayor Ryan's point before. So I think that's what this solid waste authority is, one of their provinces is to come up with the policies that you all will agree that should be for any member city, municipality who's belonging to this will be agreeing to live by. And the county would be willing to help facilitate, work with you on that. But I think that's what one of the responsibilities.
Here's my
that
exception.
because, I'm sorry.
Member
is that
Shuham, if I can. Member Shuham, if I can. Here's my exception to this. If the solid waste authority didn't exist, the county should be moving forward on this. If we were not in this room, we didn't have it, we should be moving forward to find out what is the authority and then reaching out. I don't know what Lee County's authority was. I don't know what Palm Beach County, maybe it's because of the solid waste authority, but we need to get everybody in a room who's fixated on this, legal from county as to what the authority is, the county, members that are important, industry, and get moving, because this back and forth of we can work on ours, but we don't think we have the authority is not getting. And it may be the right answer at the end of the day. There may be no authority, which will further invigorate what this authority needs to do to make that through flow control agreement or otherwise. So we can certainly deal with that. Member Shuham, sorry.
That's okay. I mean, those are my thoughts as well. But I mean, unless I'm losing my mind, I thought the conversation was that something was being worked on, not in the sense of studying policies about where we could put it, but actually about an imposition of a requirement. And Chair Ryan, that was my point. And maybe Travis, you've looked into this. Is there a distinction between the authorities of the counties that have done this versus the authority of Broward County?
And the county attorney's office here as well. Travis.
Yeah, so all good points and really good discussion, right? There are trade-offs with any policy decision. So let me kind of go back through a couple of those that were mentioned. I'd say, first of all, regarding the cost, there are existing C&D facilities within your community. So you're very fortunate in that there is private sector competition. And so if you do something as a disposal ban, as one of the tools we mentioned, that would require that material to flow to those facilities, but you have enough facilities that there should be competition to help keep that cost from going up at an absorbent level. Also, Chair Ryan mentioned, we do have examples within Florida Sarasota, Lee, Palm Beach, where we can reach out to them to really determine, did it impact their affordable housing? Did it increase the cost of construction, and try to get feedback on that? That's not been done yet, but that's something that we could work towards. Regarding what Broward's authority is versus what the potential authority of this body would be versus the other communities, I'm not aware of that right now. That would be another step involved. I like Chair Ryan's recommendation to make a subcommittee specifically focused on this. You have so many jurisdictions, their respective construction process and permitting processes and the county's processes vary. So you've got to get everyone together to kind of wrangle through these issues and determine what is the best approach moving forward. So we would welcome that. I've not heard of the county moving forward with any type of ordinance related to this beyond what was mentioned, that looking at their own landfill and what could be done there. To that point, you do have some counties that just target, say, concrete at their landfills and have a concrete crusher and use that concrete beneficially, like on their landfill site. So it's not really diverting it away and getting it back into the recycling stream, but it does increase your recycling rate under Florida DEP methodology. Still beneficial compared to putting it all in the landfill, but there are some cost-effective ways to get at maybe just a big portion of the concrete without having to have a fully robust, operating C&D facility. So again, there's a lot of different options there. I think what I'm hearing and everyone agrees with is that we got to start moving in some direction. And I think you need to have a concerted effort to really focus on this, because it will be a legal issue in terms of how it's implemented and how it's enforced. And that would then inform what the costs are to the participants of the ILA. Hopefully that
Good morning.
shared.
Good morning.
Thank you, Travis. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the millions at home.
This is Matt Haber, Assistant County Attorney for Broward County. The law on this point is actually very simple. I heard Member Shuham ask if the counties have different authorities. It's partially a question of law, partially a question of fact. So if you look at Palm Beach County, which a lot of us look to as a good model, they do have different authorities. The Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County, I believe, was initially created by special act of the legislature. I know that when this body was the Solid Waste Working Group, we looked into that in a very detailed manner. We even asked the executive director of that authority several questions. It simply has different powers than any other county in Broward County, and that's partially why it's able to undertake the centralized programs it has.
It's an independent special district with gubernatorial appointments.
Correct. So,
And Lee County?
Lee County, so here's the issue, right? Lee County, to my knowledge, does not have any legal powers different than Broward County, but the ordinance you're referencing there is a different kind of ordinance. So if you look at 403-706 Florida statutes, it makes it very clear that counties cannot force municipalities to participate in recycling programs. What Lee County did was pass an ordinance that required generators of construction and demolition debris to ensure that the debris they generated was recycled. And that only applies to projects within the unincorporated areas of Lee County. So Broward County only has this authority within the very small unincorporated area where it provides municipal services. As Mayor Ryan correctly pointed out, the Solid Waste Authority, unlike Broward County, does have the authority to set minimum recycling standards. It was a big reason why the county was enticed to participate in the Solid Waste Authority, is because it has the ability to create a unified recycling system, and Broward County does not.
Right. So to this point again, and let me put it in a scenario: the Solid Waste Authority of Broward County doesn't exist. There would be an opportunity for the county and the municipalities to enter into a separate ILA focused on C&D. They could all agree to this in a flow control. And they're right. There's a lot of machinations that go along with that, but there are vehicles to get there. And
so if you look at one of the early sections of the interlocal agreement that created this authority, it lists a series of Florida statutes, both in Chapter 163 and Chapter 403. And those are literally all of the intergovernmental programs on this topic.
Right.
And so, yes, I mean, essentially that is what the authority is. It is an interlocal agreement that allows the various municipalities and the county to participate in this intergovernmental program for the purpose of mandating recycling.
Yeah, I agreed. But my point's a little nuanced here, and that is that if there was a desire let's separate out all the other issues we're talking about, waste to energy, what we're doing on education. There is the capacity for the municipalities to agree with the county through an ILA to make sure that C&D from the municipalities is being recycled. There's a mechanism for us to do that outside the solid waste authority. I say that because while you can't mandate what the municipalities are doing, if the municipalities believe this is a paramount public policy, we can enter into agreements. For instance, if BIC was the facility, right?
So my question is this: when you're saying we're going to mandate recycling, who is that mandate imposed on?
It's within the municipal jurisdictions, yes.
Right, but is it on the generators of the recyclable material, or is it on the landfill operators or MRF operators?
Right, these are all nuanced questions that are.
They change the answer.
Right, it can, and that.
And the other question I would ask is simply, if we enter into additional ILA, how does that impact the power of the authority?
Obviously, I understand that. I'm talking about an intellectual exercise to make sure that we're all understanding that there's not a sense of paralysis that makes it impossible. Understanding, yes, you could do it this way without the solid waste authority. We have the solid waste authority, which is supposed to be achieving these goals. We've agreed at the outset of the ILA that we're going to be covering these type of intergovernmental agreements to do that. Now our job is to expedite that process. To Member Shuham's point, it's here, it's now, to the vice chair's point. It's low hanging fruit. Now what we have to do is get everybody in the room from the legal perspective. And obviously I respect and welcome your legal acumen on this, as I would Jamie's, to say, how do we get there most effectively? One of the things that I've said from the beginning, and I think many of the members have as well, let's not wait till we have the last bit of this done before we get there. There's movements and delicate issues that have to be considered. My only suggestion, we don't do it here at the podium back and forth, is that we get a dedicated group together to try to really focus on how do we move this forward. Because I also think that it is an opportunity to show that something productive and palatable has been produced, even from this process, before that last master plan moment. The last cog in that machine is fitted neatly in.
I think if we can just rewind back to where you were probably 15 minutes ago, and setting up a subcommittee is probably the best course of action right now. Get the legal teams and get working on that and start producing something. And I think the county would definitely support, would like to help and be part, facilitate that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different legal issues that may come up here. There's some mental gymnastics that we can do, but at the end of the day, I think where you were 15 minutes ago is where we should be, and that's get a subcommittee going and start moving this.
And while we're talking about the legal issues, obviously the vice chair points out the very significant financial issues that need cost, and all those issues need it, and policy implications, unintended consequences of any movement. That needs to be percolated, and it's not going to be done in executive committee meetings. It's too complex, and and you have to have these free-flowing discussions to say what if. And so I think, thank you, Mr. Keller, for that.
And there's different programs, and each one has their different legal and financial issues, and that's the vetting that a subcommittee can do to really work through that. And so,
okay, I think Member Shuham, you were trying to make a comment.
No, that's okay. It was touched on, but just some sort of a model ordinance that cities that are so inclined could get started right away would be fantastic.
Excellent. All right, to the other members online, any other questions or comments? And then I'm going to go around. Hang on. Okay, Member Mateo Bone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo Member Shuhan's comments in regards to creating some type of template for cities to model, and they can be a pilot program and see how we can emulate that and execute that through SWA. My comment is around preemption. If we do work around this, we know what's going on in Tallahassee. How will this preempt us from moving this work along? That is my concern, because I know within our city, we've tried to implement some or have some ideas, but legislatively, we've been preempted. So I also want to see how we're able to emulate some of these models that were suggested today and find loopholes around what's being pushed in Tallahassee. Second, is it possible for us to begin creating within the subcommittee that you've suggested, Chair, a policy recommendation to Broward County and have them work through that and have their attorneys work through the legal nuances and then bring it back to us and say, hey, this is what we've come up with, and we provide our feedback. I think that's the direction we should start going into instead of talking in circles and talking about what we can't do, because I think that that takes away from the work that we're doing as an executive committee.
Agreed. Right, Member Mead and then Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And I agree with the consensus here. I think there has to be a way to get there. This is too easy, frankly. We have got systems in place already to handle this. So it's a matter, I think, of finding a way to get there. And I hope that we could do this quickly because, again, it's going to make a big difference. And like I say, systems are already in place. We can't say that for very much of what we do here.
Fair point. Member Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I can almost assure if this is something that we can get done, Broward County Commission would be thrilled to do something like this. Again, providing that we can do it, enforce it legally, et cetera, we'd be happy to do something like that. Travis, when you're, again, I think probably the most important issue we're going to see is pricing. When you look at that, I have one request, which is to include dynamic pricing, because if I'm going to use waste as an example, because I assume, have the largest recycling facility in the county. Okay. If waste is currently charging $53 a ton, which is a number I pulled out of the air, to I think it's higher than that. What are your 75? Yeah. Okay. When I said I pulled out of the air, it wasn't completely out of the air. So if it's $54 a ton recycling today, but we mandate that every city or 3/4 of the cities have to recycle, and there aren't new facilities, then waste can say, well, gee, we could charge $110 a ton. Not that you would ever do that, but if there was a mandate to recycle so much, then I would expect that the private sector, seeing a never-ending stream of more than their existing capacity, could certainly dramatically increase the prices. So I would ask you, if you are going to do a financial analysis, to make sure that you include that dynamic pricing factor in your analysis. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Okay. We don't have a formal motion yet on this issue of a C&D subcommittee. I would, just to one friendly amendment, within that process, often C&D, bulk, and veg are discussed. They are separate streams, they're separate considerations, but I would suggest that if we were to do that, that those three should be linked in the discussion to provide recommendations. Mr. Vice Chair.
As part of the motion, what I'd like to do is suggest that committee or subcommittee be appointed. I don't know whether it's a committee or subcommittee, and give them the discretion as to what they will be including in that. They may decide just concrete. They may decide all C&D. They may decide all C&D and veg. Let the subcommittee.
The only thing I think we have to make clear from the executive committee, that at least they can consider it if they decide not to discuss bulk or don't discuss veg. But I want to at least give them the authority to have that discussion, if that's fair.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let them.
I just don't want to go. I don't want it also to be freewheeling that they're going to be tasked with going out into other areas of waste streams that are not being considered. C&D, bulk, and veg, which are off. And then if they decide bulk and veg are too difficult or there are different analyses, they can come back with that. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's what I moved.
Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second? Second from Member Horland. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, what I would suggest is those members, both who are here and those online, as well as those that aren't, who wish to participate in that, should contact Mr. Storty, and I would suggest that to the extent possible that a meeting be scheduled in probably at or around the May 21st meeting to at least move forward on this. We're going to have already the master plan. We'll have the work that's being moved forward. There's going to be a lot of outreach and begin to do that, if that's fair for everybody. Okay, Mr. Shorty, you understand?
Understood.
Okay. Any further discussion? Thank you, Travis. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right, SES master plan update. First, I want to thank SES for the most recent task reports, both 6 and 17. With respect to 6, just as I didn't have any comments with respect to the actual report. I did raise with SES a couple of ideas. One, that in identifying, again, let's go back and understand what that task was. It was to identify municipal or county-owned sites which could help facilitate the mission of the SWA, applying a variety of criteria, both of size and distance to residents and other things. Of the sites that were identified at the number 140 or whatever the number was, it got whittled down to 8 that could be considered. Of those other 130 plus, what I'd asked SES to do is to provide an appendix of all of the sites that were considered, along with an explanation as to why they didn't fit the criteria. I say that because there could be some sites where, let's say there was a 10-acre minimum, maybe it was 8. I'm not saying that that's the case, again, using the ability to pull from the air, like the vice chair has been doing, but that there may be a policy decision that's made as to what can be done, or to parcel with available property in the area around, and that at least we'd have a better understanding in a transparent way why it appears to be so few sites available. And you were okay with that, right?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that. Good morning again, everybody. Just to add to that point, we had also received a number of sites from the county as well, with a similar request of just trying to understand why they may have been excluded. So we think it will be helpful to include that as an attachment with a disposition of why they did not meet the initial criteria. And obviously that would be a policy decision if we wanted to expand or limit any of those criteria to open the opportunities for additional sites.
Okay. Additionally, I would suggest to the members that there was a very interesting discussion in 6 regarding the addition of a 4th boiler versus a complete rehab and rehaul of the existing south plant. We don't have to have that discussion today, but I would really invite the members to look at that very closely, and the both financial and engineering considerations from that. That's going to be a key component as we move forward. All right, thank you so much for being here. I know you have some updates for us.
Yes. So mostly we wanted to provide just a status update and really most importantly, the next steps. So we've been making great progress. We're in the home stretch. So we've issued 9 white papers, and thank you so much for all the feedback to date. Those ultimate white papers will culminate in the collection and development of the master plan, which we are actively working on as we speak. So we've submitted tasks 1 through 5, 8, 9, and 10. Those are all complete. The white papers are posted on the website and available for public review and comment. We did submit, as Chair Ryan mentioned, task 6, and we've received some feedback there as well. That we were actually going to be issuing that today, but given the feedback that we've received, we'd like to take a couple extra days to make sure that we can incorporate that consolidated summary. So we'll shoot, I think early by no later than the end of next week, we'll have that packaged up and we'll get that out to you. Task 7, which was the implementation plan and the timelines, which really started to set the stage for when you'll need to initiate different activities. That was issued on the 11th, and we're expecting feedback by today. We've received a bit, so kind of last call for any comments, and then we plan to have that issued by the 25th. As we've discussed, we've had a number of additional requests, one of which was the C&D, the additional C&D analysis, and obviously we had a very robust conversation on that today. So that has been completed, and obviously we're here to support any next steps and initiatives, and we're happy to be a resource wherever we can. Separately, you had asked for a waste to energy health impacts publication resources summary. It's a mouthful of a title, but essentially it's a bibliography or a resource tool that just collects and collaborates all the available information out there so that you have easy access to it. That we're going to be issuing by the end of today. So we're polishing that up as well. And we would welcome feedback on that as well. So we're available to refine or add or enhance. The focus there is really on published scientific peer-reviewed materials. So we're really, there's a number of, obviously this is a very emotional topic within the public. And so there are a number of materials out there that, we did not include simply because we wanted to have an even playing field of the information that we present to you. But we're recommending and noting where there may be other resources, and we obviously welcome you to research on your own, but we're trying to give you the scientific peer-reviewed, fact-based information. Okay. So that will come to you later this afternoon. So all of that will lead up to the draft master plan, which we've talked about. That is going to be available May 9th. And then we're looking to have a series of public workshops, which will then gain the feedback, present the master plan to the stakeholders as well as to the public. And then ultimately the master plan will be complete in July. So
outreach meetings, have the dates been selected and locations so we can make sure we begin announcing that we're running up on time, right?
Yes, and you teed that up well. So the executive director, Mercury Consensus, have been working really hard on identifying venues and dates. Obviously, there's constraints around size, accessibility, the acoustics. That was a challenge that we faced the last meeting. So that really does ultimately narrow it down to a more limited option of venues. But we have narrowed down dates within the week of June 9th to the 18th. So we're looking at the first meeting would be June 11th, and that will be the meeting of the authority, the TAC, city representatives, staff. So that's Tuesday. Well, actually, I didn't write down the date, but it's the 11th. The next meeting would be the 12th, and that would be with the League of Cities, all the municipal partners and members. And then June 16th, which will be an evening meeting. These next two meetings will be evening meetings for the public. So June 16th and June 17th. We do need to wait for final confirmation of the venues before we make official announcement of the locations, but the intent that they'll be centrally located within east-west to make sure that obviously someone will be inconvenienced, but we're really trying to make sure that the venues were as centrally located as possible for everyone.
Okay, perfect. Any questions for SES on that? All right, thank you. As soon as those dates and locations, Mr. Storti, make sure you get that out to everybody so they have that.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you so much. All right, county update. Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just passed out to all of the members. I have a few spare copies. An ordinance which I drafted, which the county adopted at our last commission meeting pertaining to battery recycling at a joint South Florida Regional Planning Council / Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council meeting on solid waste, one of our conferences. We were informed that on a regular basis, garbage trucks in the United States are going up in flames because of lithium batteries. And so this made me investigate the issue of battery recycling. As I got into that, I realized that there were three reasons why battery recycling, at least three, are particularly important. One is to prevent fires with all of the lithium batteries. Number two, a lot of the batteries have heavy metals in them when either burned improperly or ground filled can cause problems in either the not the wastewater, but either a water table or air. And finally, as we are moving more towards an electric economy, we can't afford to dispose of the nickel the lithium and the cobalt that are in a lot of the household batteries. So I did author an ordinance which was finally adopted at our last commission meeting. The summary of it is in front of you, but it requires, it is countywide. It requires retailers to impose an on-site battery collection and recycling program. It applies only to batteries of 2 pounds or less. We don't want this to apply to car batteries or these special, batteries that are basically alternatives to generators. The enforcement is based on the retailers, and what it does is it says if you're a retailer that is actively engaged in the selling of batteries, if you're a hotel gift shop and you sell, 1 pack of batteries a week, it doesn't apply to you. You have to sell average over $1,000 a month for this to apply to you. And then there's different levels. In order to be considered one of the big box retailers, you have to have, I believe it's 9 linear feet of space in your store devoted to battery sales. Think Home Depot, think Walgreens, think CVS, et cetera. Or you're a company, if you're, these Batteries Plus or companies like that, or you're a company that primarily exists to repair consumer electronics. In all of these cases, they have to offer recycling at no cost to the consumers. They have to have their signage requirements both at the front of the store and by the recycling box itself saying you can recycle. On the smaller retailers, it only requires them to accept a certain amount of batteries per day unless they're buying new batteries. They're at the larger retailers, they have to accept, if I know I might dispose of 60 or 80, because I would buy a case because of hurricane, I might buy a case or 2 of batteries. No hurricane has come along 4 years later, I've got a case or 2 to dispose of. So would require that these, again, be disposable at no cost in the appropriate recycling facilities. If the retailers don't do that, first violation is a warning of $250 per day. Repeat violations are $500 a day, but that can be per violation. So if 8 people come in and there's nothing there, again, first they're going to get a warning before they get a violation. Then they're going to get a violation, then repeat violations. Eventually, they're going to start to comply. And we also put this at the Broward County landfill, I think at other landfills as well, say that you can't dispose of certain batteries. It is a real problem when people are disposing illegally already of car batteries in the landfills and other, large batteries, which are not supposed to go directly into the landfill. So we are requiring signs be posted saying, we really mean it, and you will be fined if we see you trying to do this. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you for bringing this forward. It's been an intractable problem at the local level. We all recognize that. So I appreciate the innovation on this. A couple questions real quick. Can we get an electronic copy of both the summary and the ordinance? Get that delivered to the executive committee.
Staff will do that.
Yes. Second, how is it to help us, because I noticed, and it goes to my third question, notice that there's an enforcement mechanism in here. How is it that you identify retailers who are obligated to comply with this? Is there an inventory or a warehouse of that information so we can see that as well?
I'm going to yield to staff, but I know that our environmental, what is Lenny's department? The Resilient Environment Department will be candidly, they're not going to be going store to store unless they get a complaint. The cities can also enforce this.
My question before that, though, is how do we identify retailers who are obligated? Because there are exceptions to who is obligated or not obligated. We don't want to be citing somebody who's not necessarily within the ambit, nor are we going to be able to assess, are they doing $1,000 a month That's not something that we have access to the data. How do we do this?
Let me punt to staff. Or lateral to staff, I guess. I know we dealt with all of those issues.
sure.
I just
I
don't
know
know.
that.
So our
The
resilient
bill is
environment,
like 8,000 pages. Slight exaggeration.
this
Or
does
the-
not go into effect till January. Our resilient environment department is one who's the regulators who will be regulating this and will be getting the information out to not only to the stores, but to the city, so they're aware of that.
The specific
what was the effective-
question was
Hang on one second. What's the effective date?
January 1.
Okay.
January,
So there's going to be a lead up time of education, right, for both the retailers and the cities.
correct.
Yes. The specific question was, will Lenny's department know which stores have more than 9 feet or 12,000, or are they going to be waiting for complaints before, or when they're in a store already for another reason?
They're going to be waiting for the complaints, and then they'll measure whether they were required to do it or not.
Okay. Member Horland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Geller, for this very important ordinance. We just lost Conceptual, but what I was going to ask is if we could work with Conceptual to build within their library of videos that they're in the process of creating, so that we have something that we can roll out ahead of time. Because again, I was at that conference, and when you start to hear about the amount of hot loads that are being dumped on our streets because of the fires and the garbage trucks, I think it'd be really important to educate the public on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Member Shuham.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to express appreciation to Senator Geller. I believe that this was also included in the update of the climate action plan to have the battery issue addressed. So we really appreciate getting this done so quickly. Thank you.
Actually, the first draft was a year ago. It wasn't really, I've been working on this for over a year. It wasn't really done very quickly.
Fantastic. I think it's a big move forward, and we can work with our municipal partners. Enforcement's the last stage, right? We want folks to be able to actually participate in this. So education is going to be a key component. Look forward to getting that information. The better lead time we have in that, so we're not trying to educate in December, will be incredibly helpful.
Which is why I brought it up here.
Yep, perfect. All right, thank you. New and old business. The only question I have for Mr. Storti and staff is we had a large number of presentations across our 3 workshops that were very, very valuable. Are those posted online and available to the public? It's too big a volume to just simply send to the members, but these were incredibly important presentations.
Yes.
Okay, so let's try to communicate some of this out to make sure folks can see the value of the information that was out of these workshops. Any other new or old business? Member Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is regarding the notification that we all received as cities regarding the lawsuit with Coconut Creek and the county and the 164 proceedings. So, each city in the county has an option to enter those proceedings, the 164 proceedings, to choose either side, but just to enter the proceedings that have a seat at the table. And we have to discuss this as a commission. It's on my commission meeting on Tuesday, whether we're going to enter it. I know that the city of Pembroke Pines has entered it, and us being our own governing body, we kind of have to make that decision as well as a governing body to enter the 164 proceedings. And it's more of a question, but it's also to be informational with the public and with our board on what's going on. Should we take a stance on should we have a position on this board, and how does it affect us in the future going forward with this current litigation?
I'll open up to the members and/or to legal. I don't know that the SWA of Broward County is within the ambit of 164. I don't know if they're noticed that way or it has to be the municipal, but I'll defer to council. Yeah, microphone. And if you're not prepared, that's okay. You can simply let the committee know.
Yeah, I'm not sure that 163 interlocal agreement entity is under the gamut of 164. I can check on that.
Okay,
You know.
thank you.
Thank you, Member Ryan. Any further discussions? All right, if not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair, second by Member Matera Bone. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thank you. Great job today. Good job today. Thanks for being here. I know you're always,